Thanks for watching this special program, Entrepreneurial Government Data Analytics, presented by Hitachi Vantara Federal, Blue Prism, and Information Builders. I'm your host, Francis Rose, with the Government Matters Thought Leadership Network. Today, we focus on innovation, modernization, and creativity in government in a critical field, data. This program features data leaders at the Air Force, the Department of Veterans Affairs, and the Navy, as well as some of their counterparts in the private sector. You'll learn more about the Internet of Things, sensors, and data-driven decision-making, how data is helping agencies improve customer service, and where data should fit in an organization's overall strategy. It's a great topic and a great lineup, so let's get right to it. Joining me first, Frank Konieczny, Chief Technology Officer at the U.S. Air Force, and Gordon Nelson, Chief Data Innovation Advisor at Hitachi Vantara Federal. Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining me. I appreciate it. Frank, I want to start with you. You're putting a sensor on everything that you can, all the military branches are. What are you doing to harness the data that's coming in from all of those sensors in all of those locations around the world?
Well, it's really hard to actually get all of them. Some of them is coming in through LTE. We're trying to actually move LTE to all the bases so we can actually accumulate all that data now. Some of us going outside of the base, and we're trying to restrict that, especially for the trucks and everything else that's associated with it. So as we build our data centers, if you will, and our data, I guess, swamps, if you like, at times, we're actually looking all through that to figure out exactly how we want to do it. Now the issue becomes, we're looking at it from a threat perspective also. If we see something wrong, and my favorite is the tire pressure. Tire pressure on a tanker truck, is that a problem? Is that an attack or not? So we're doing some correlations across the multiple sensors, and eventually the correlation is going to show us if we have a problem or we anticipated a problem occurring which is normal, or all of a sudden something happens which is abnormal to us. And so we're looking at that too. So we're actually looking at various ways of correlating the data with everything we have out there right now. It
sounds like a similar problem to what we see in the cyber realm. Are you applying a risk management framework to the information that you get?
Yes, in fact we're going down to threads, or mission threads, and part of the mission thread, of course, is a tanker truck. You need tankers to actually fuel the jets. And so the issue becomes, what part of my mission thread am I going to look at now? And what risk do I have if I have a flat tire on a tanker truck? Or is that really a risk? Could I just drag the tanker truck over there now, no matter what? So yes, it's all part of the risk analysis for the mission threads.
Gordon, are there things that agencies can learn as they're building a data management strategy from the kinds of things that Frank just expressed?
Absolutely. What Frank just mentioned with the IoT and varying inputs and sensors, that's a huge part of what you have to watch out for today. We find that if the agencies in building their data strategies are trying to build flexibility into those, that's really the key thing, flexibility. That fits in a lot of places that we find. One of the reasons for that is trying to find tools which will allow you to be flexible, allow you to take possibly fairly untrained employees or airmen and put them to work building transformations of data that you have access to, and getting that to the data scientists that will then model that data and put it in some informative way that you'll gain insights from that. So it's all about getting that insight or having that insight realized by the end user when they see that data processed and manipulated and analyzed.
When you use the term flexibility, what specifically are you referring to? What needs to be flexible in a data management strategy?
So I would say that the way you think your strategy is going to work from the beginning is not the way it ends up, usually. One of the things that data engineers see a lot and data scientists see a lot is they kind of stand in wonder sometime that they actually have created some relationship that they didn't think they were going to get from the very beginning. So if they were not flexible, and if they did not have flexible tools to go back and modify and create models based on what they just found out, then your plan sort of goes, haywire.
Frank, you laughed as Gordon said that your strategy doesn't end up where it starts, and that's
it usually doesn't.
It sounded like a chuckle of experience.
That's
am
right.
I right?
It usually doesn't work that way. If it was that good, it'd be real easy, but it's not that easy.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of times you think you have the right set of data, and you really don't, or you don't have enough of the right set of data, or the data's bad, and so there's a lot of cleansing that has to be done for the data to get good results out of it.
Is the problem usually, though, the data itself, or is it the way that people read it? Is it the way they put their eyeballs on it and try to analyze it?
It's both. I mean, the problem space we have is that if you combine data from different functional communities together, they all have an argument or an agreement as to what it means when you put them together. And this has been one of the issues that we have. We have to set up teams that actually go through the data with the SME that actually wants this information and figure out, what does it really mean. So I think, interpretations are a very big deal when you try to figure out how the data is actually going to fit to your problem space.
Gordon, do you usually see the issue with the data or with the analytics? Yes is a perfectly appropriate answer.
Yes, absolutely. It does fit into both buckets, very much so. It's an interesting issue that we have to deal with. One of the things that I think helps to kind of push through that, especially with regard to a data strategy, is if the agency creating that data strategy is interested in bringing the right skill sets to the party. So that data science, which is something that people can kind of look at askew sometimes, but there really is a need for that particular skill set as much as there is for data engineering.
One of the things that is impacting people like Frank's world tremendously is the volume of information that's capable, that they're able to collect. Then they have to figure out how they're going to do it, as Frank talked about earlier, and how they're going to then parse it. How's technology driving that change? Is it more an accelerator, or is it almost a problem because it's creating challenges for people like Frank, how they figure out what to do with it all?
It is absolutely a blessing and a curse, the good news and the bad news. The great news is that the more data you process and therefore get into that analysis pipeline, the more interesting insights you can gain from that. And ultimately, the reason to do this is to get it to the end user, to get it to the warfighter, to get it to the generals, the people making the decisions. Very much, that's the curse and the blessing.
One of the things, Frank, that has changed over the last, I'd say, year and a half in particular, in the defense space regarding data and technology is an emphasis on acquisition and changes to the acquisition process, try to make things happen faster. How is all of that potentially impacting your world?
Well, we want to have the data. We want to have the data. Okay. So the question becomes, how do you get it, or how do you plan to get it? I think that's been the problem. Because sometimes we go to an analysis and we find we don't have the data, or it's not sufficient enough for the analysis we want to do. So we're looking at it from a use case perspective a lot of times. What data? What do I really want to get out of the data? What's my problem space? And then going backwards to acquisition and saying, okay, we have to have that data in this way. Because a lot of it's, besides standardization, it's a lot of content that we are missing sometimes, just because of the way we did the acquisition.
Gordon, we have about 30 seconds left. What can industry do, companies like yours, to help Frank with those acquisition challenges that he just outlined?
I think it's exploring some of the new areas, particularly data science today. One of the things that my company has pledged to do within the year, I believe 2020, is add about 1,500 more data scientists. And that's not specifically just in the IT space, it's kind of the operational technology space too. So it starts to incorporate the idea of the sensors and the IoT, also meshing then with the IT side of things that we're normally doing.
Gordon, Frank, thanks both very much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next, we'll shift focus from managing IT services to improving customer service through data. You're watching Entrepreneurial Government Data Analytics on the Government Matters Thought Leadership Network.
Entrepreneurial Government is brought to you in part by Hitachi Vantara Federal, your end-to-end data services provider. Learn more at HitachiVantaraFederal.com.